Arthur Schopenhauer believed that sexual desire is not a choice, not a pleasure, and not an innocent pursuit of love. It is the iron chain that ties man to existence. When a young man is consumed by lust, he imagines he is pursuing joy, intimacy, or personal satisfaction. But Schopenhauer would say this is an illusion, a dream carefully staged by nature. The body does not ask whether this pursuit will bring happiness or despair. It only commands, reproduce, extend life, continue the species. In this way, men are not lovers. They are prisoners. They are not free beings, but vehicles of an ancient force far older than themselves. At the heart of Schopenhauer's philosophy lies the will to live. This will is blind, irrational, and unstoppable. It is not concerned with the happiness of individuals, but only with continuation. Every animal, every plant, every human being is an instrument of this will, and sexuality is the clearest way this will shows its power. The hunger for food preserves the individual. The hunger for sex preserves the species. When a man feels desire for a woman, he thinks he is admiring beauty. But according to Schopenhauer, he is nothing more than a tool. The will manipulates his imagination, whispering illusions of beauty and charm. In truth, what seems like attraction is simply nature saying, "This is a suitable womb. This is continuation." Romantic myths collapse under this view. The entire theater of love, flirting, seduction, passion, is a trick. Youth, clear skin, bright eyes, and symmetry are not magical charms. They are signals. They tell the male subconscious that this woman is fertile, healthy, and capable of producing strong offspring. The tragedy is that men rarely realize this. They chase women with the belief that they are pursuing happiness, yet in reality, they are slaves of biology. Desire, then, becomes a trap. It makes men restless, obsessed, and irrational. The moment you want something, you are unsatisfied until you get it. Once you get it, the satisfaction is brief, followed by boredom, regret, or a new craving. This cycle is the very structure of human suffering. Sex, being the most powerful desire, is also the most powerful trap. It promises heaven but delivers only fleeting satisfaction, followed by emptiness. Romantic love itself is perhaps the most cunning trick. A man in love believes he is experiencing something sacred and transcendent. But Schopenhauer reveals it as nothing more than nature's deception. Lovers imagine they are seeking personal happiness, yet they are serving the interests of the species. The desperate passion a man feels for one particular woman is not about his joy. It is about the possibility of producing children with her genetic traits. What emerges is brutal. Man is not the master of his desires. He is their servant. He sacrifices money, time, and sometimes life itself in pursuit of women. Not because he freely chooses, but because he is enslaved. Sexual desire is the greatest illusion and the greatest form of slavery. Yet this slavery does not last forever. As men age, the grip weakens, the urgency fades, testosterone falls, and for the first time, men begin to see the truth. That much of their energy, ambition, and suffering were driven by a blind biological compulsion. The veil begins to lift. What once seemed divine now appears ordinary. This is the beginning of awakening. When men are young, they live under the spell of nature. Passion, beauty, and pleasure appear irresistible. A young man believes that if he only achieves sexual success, happiness will follow. But this is the great dream of the will. A dream that always fails. Every conquest and every night of pleasure ends in emptiness. Each disappointment reveals the fraud. Sex is not the key to happiness. It is bait. Schopenhauer explains that pleasure itself is only a disguise. Pleasure is not positive. It is simply the removal of pain. Desire is painful. It creates tension and restlessness. Sexual satisfaction is not happiness, but only a brief release from that pain. And once the release fades, the hunger returns. This means sex can never bring fulfillment. It only resets the cycle. Eventually, men experience what can be called the moment of clarity. It may follow heartbreak, years of fruitless relationships, or simply the cooling of youthful fire. Looking back, a man sees how much he has sacrificed in pursuit of women. Time, money, dignity, and for what? Fleeting moments, fading memories, and regret. He realizes he was never chasing happiness. He was being used by life itself. Biology helps this awakening. As sexual urgency declines, reason grows louder. Women once seen as goddesses are now seen as humans. The fire of obsession is replaced by detachment. What once seemed the greatest pursuit now looks like distraction. Romantic love, which once burned like fire, loses its glow. The man sees that love was not a path to joy, but a trick of nature, forcing him to serve the species. With this realization, the enchantment breaks. Passion no longer dominates. The costs of desire also become visible. Kings, warriors, and ordinary men have humiliated themselves in its name. Fortunes have been wasted, reputations destroyed, and peace sacrificed. In youth, these sacrifices seemed justified. In age, they seem absurd. The prize is too small for the price. At last, desire fades into indifference. Indifference is not bitterness or hatred. It is freedom. It is the recognition that sex, though natural, is not the meaning of life. It is an urge that no longer rules the mind. The man does not fear losing women, nor crave them. He is free. This disillusionment may sound pessimistic, but it contains a secret liberation. By seeing through illusions, the man is free to turn his energy toward higher pursuits. When he stops desiring sex, he does not lose life. He gains it back. When the spell of desire is broken, the greatest tyrant of man's inner life falls. For decades, desire commanded him. It made him chase, suffer, and sometimes destroy himself. But now its throne is empty. And instead of loss, Schopenhauer sees freedom. In youth, men create children. In maturity, they create meaning. Once sex no longer consumes his strength, a man can redirect his energy toward art, philosophy, science, and spirituality. Many of history's greatest minds withdrew from sexual obsession and poured their intensity into creation of thought, art, and culture. True wisdom begins when a man withdraws from illusions, and no illusion is greater than sex. Freed from this compulsion, he can ask deeper questions about life, suffering, and truth. Instead of being a puppet of nature, he becomes an observer of it. This freedom also awakens compassion. Once he sees through his own illusions, he understands that every being suffers under the same will. Out of this recognition grows empathy. The man who no longer worships desire becomes capable of a more universal love. Not romantic obsession, but genuine compassion. Art, too, becomes a refuge. In beauty, music, and poetry, the man can step outside the restless cycle of craving. He can dwell in moments of peace, appreciating life without hunger. Declining desire thus prepares him for deeper joy, a joy free of slavery. Spiritual traditions echo this truth. Buddhism and Hinduism, which Schopenhauer admired, teach that liberation comes from renouncing desire, not feeding it. When a man stops desiring sex, he unknowingly touches this ideal. He steps closer to liberation, closer to peace. Freed from desire, he is freed from humiliation. He no longer kneels before beauty, no longer compromises dignity for lust. His self-respect grows, not from bitterness, but from clarity. At last comes tranquility. The restless fire is gone. What remains is stillness and calm. This is not the end of life, but the beginning of a higher one. It is preparation for death without fear, for wisdom without illusion. Men who outgrow sex often leave behind legacies far greater than children. They leave behind art, philosophy, and acts of compassion. Their legacy is not merely biological, but spiritual and cultural. Thus, the decline of sexual desire is not decay. It is transformation. It is the release of chains. It is the return of freedom. When men stop desiring sex, they do not become empty. They become free.